What's up, Internet? My name's Nerdy, and this is Class Action Lawsuit, a TTRPG podcast in 3 parts. Today, as always, I have a guest with me, and they're going to roll a charisma check. You have a d20 with you?
Oh, Jesus. I do.
All right, let's see what you get.
What's my modifier?
Nothing. You're a normal person. You have 10s across the board.
I'm such a loser. I've got a 15.
Oh, no way. My first guest rolled a 15. My wife. We've only had 15 so far.
I will introduce myself exactly the same way they did.
Please do. Please give the exact same introduction.
Hi, it's great to be here with my husband today. Boy, howdy. I sure do love that guy. My name is Mr. Shickadance. Hello, everybody. It's good to be here. One of the earliest guests, I think, on the show. I'm honored, honestly.
Number two.
And I will be... Number 2!
Yeah.
Oh, my God. That's such an honor. And I will be participating in the wonderful event that will be running on this channel later this year. I'm very happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we should also say you are the GM of Chaos Theory, an actual play series running on Fridays, right?
Yeah, I for sure did not give you a 15. I just sort of panicked. It just spouted out whatever came to mind. But yes, I do also run.
Here's the thing about the charisma check. You just do it's D&D. You just say what you want to say, and then you roll, and then it was a 15. You know what I mean?
Okay, we'll retake it right now. I want to have done well. There we go. You just described what I did to make it a 15.
You did great. You couldn't have done better. Maybe if you'd rolled a natural 20, you could have done better, but like a 15 is pretty solid.
I appreciate it.
Yeah. Especially for a commoner with no modifier.
I am. That's what people call me.
Yeah.
Whenever I go to the grocery store, they're like, oh, there's this commoner with no modifier again. Get him out of here.
I want to play one in a campaign so bad. I want to be just a dude with like a magic suit of armor that gives me like 50 health, but no modifiers, no nothing. Just a dude with a sword, confused the whole time.
Honestly, I think every DM has at some point gone like, what if I was just a guy who died in the first like 5 minutes, which is what I would probably be if I was a D&D. Like people always ask, what's your D&D class? I would be the guy with 5 hit points, dies in the opening scene to set the stakes for everybody else. That's what I'd be the opening scene of RoboCop. I'd be that guy.
I would love the idea, though, that you would be, like, filming a TikTok and just get, like, wiped out at the beginning of the campaign. You're, like, setting up your tripod, like...
Yeah, like Mr. Magoo walking around a construction site. I'd be filming myself.
Yeah, 100%.
Just narrowly avoiding buzzsaws and girders.
You know what? I don't think enough D&D combat takes place in active construction sites.
Well, that's because people don't know what they looked like back in medieval times.
It's true. We are still confused about how the Egyptians built the pyramids, even though we're pretty sure we know how the Egyptians built the pyramids.
Do you not? It was aliens.
Yeah. It's actually the tip of a long tower that goes deep into the ground that connects with the towers in Mexico. It's actually this spear through the entire planet.
They're all one giant. What's that game called? Jacks. You throw the ball and you pick up the jacks. It's one of those, but in the earth. Yeah.
Earth is just God's jacks. Yeah.
It's a game you left too long.
All right, we're gonna talk about class. We're gonna talk about Chaos Theory when we get to the action section of the podcast. But the beginning of the show is class, and
class. I have none of that.
You got to the first question, which is what would your class be in D&D? But you would be classless.
I would be. If
you had to have one, what would it be?
If I had to have one hoisted upon me, I would probably be. I would say bard, but I don't think I'd be good enough at magic. So I'd probably be a rogue. I don't think I'd be able to grasp the concept.
Are you like a morally bad person from an orphanage?
What the? That's nowhere in the player's handbook. First of all, you don't have to be a piece of shit.
Oh, sorry, that's in the 2024. That's in the 2024.
Oh.
Yeah.
They updated it. Yeah. They got my letters. Good. I actually do love the idea of rogues having to be terrible people to be able to do some of the things they do, because they do a lot of really cool stuff.
I mean, the idea of sneak attack to me implies that you are more than willing to do the most like gnarly, like knife to the throat kill right from the gate on someone you do not know their motives. Like, in order for a sneak attack to exist, you have to be willing to stab someone in the back as the beginning of a fight.
And I'd do it too. I'd happily do it.
Okay.
But it probably, I'd be, again, like I said, I think I'm the guy in the opening scene. But if I were a class, I'd be the I'd be the guy who doesn't have morals because he's too scared to have morals.
Mm-hmm.
I'm taking everybody's throats out. I'm going for nut shots. I'm doing whatever it takes to get me home. You know what I mean?
100%.
I'm a nice guy.
I don't know where the nuts are on a beholder, but I think you'd find them. I believe in you.
I'll get there. I'll find them.
You're known for your TikToks. You tell stories and skits about D&D. And
yes.
I'm assuming that means you've played the game a lot, right? Like, you've probably been doing this for a while. So where did you get your start to TTRPG?
So the secret about most content creators in this space is they don't actually play the game that often. I've played like barely any of it for the past few years. That's why I started the game I started recently. Mm-hmm. But I started in like 2016-ish. Around then. Okay. Yeah. Not anything other than like 5th edition. I started with this edition and soon to be 2024. Let's go, dude. But mostly just this edition. A lot of people in my age group grew up with a content creator group called Rooster Teeth. Mm-hmm. They had a show called Heroes and Halfwits. Mm-hmm. Now, I was already watching their other content. I was like, oh, I'll watch this nerd-ass show. I've got nothing else to do. And they were playing Dungeons & Dragons. So I learned about the game there, thought it was kind of cool. And then at one of their panels, they name-dropped Critical Role and Adventure Zone. Mm-hmm. And I hopped on those, and I didn't look back. That was it. I was going. I was off. Mm-hmm. Love that.
Do you remember your first character?
Yeah. Oh, God. Oh, my God. Yeah. It was a Tabaxi bard named Whisker.
Okay, yeah. It's a cat.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that was the joke, is his dad named him Whisker because he was drunk when he was born. So that's what he wrote on the birth certificate. But everyone just calls him Whiskey because it's embarrassing to be known as a cat name when you're Tabaxi.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So it was basically that. And his backstory was, essentially, if anyone's ever played the Sly Cooper games, that was his backstory. Someone broke into his house, stole all his dad's stuff, and he was going to get it back.
Dude, I fucking love Sly Cooper. Those games were the best. Yes, I need 100%. A like PS5 update. I want to play in full HD.
Oh, a remaster? I'd love that so much.
Yeah, 1 through 3.
No idea.
Oh yeah.
1, 2, 3. We can ignore 4 because that didn't happen.
No.
Yeah.
Although honestly, if they were like, we remastered it and we made it like the first 3, I'd be like, okay, yeah, I'll play through it again.
Yeah, if the loading time, when the game first came out, the loading times were like 15 minutes per level, and I could not deal with that.
Yeah.
But yeah,
that's so funny. I feel like so many people I talk with about D&D, I feel like people talk about D&D and they're like, first-time players always play humans because it's the easy one to get into. And in my experience, that's just not true. I feel like people always play either a Tabaxi because they have like movement speed and it's a cat, or they're like a tiefling because they're bisexual, or they play as like an orc or something different just to like get to do something different. And like people settle on humans later on when they're like, I don't want to think about this too much.
Yeah, I find that like people who you're trying to sell on the concept of the game always gravitate towards human because they don't want to be any of that weird shit.
Yeah.
But people who are like already, kind of nerdy and like fantasy stuff, they're like, "Ooh, I can be a giant turtle. Awesome."
Oh, that's a cat behind you. I was like, what is moving over your shoulder?
Sorry.
There was just a black shape slowly encroaching. Yeah, no, I would agree with that. I don't try and sell people on D&D too often because I feel like it's really hard to get those people to stick with a campaign.
Yes.
Like if I want to do a one-shot with a friend who doesn't play it, then I'll maybe push it on them a little bit more.
Yeah.
But even Clark's last episode, we were talking about bringing someone new into the game. And the process of like being like, do you want to play D&D with us? Here's a 270 whatever page book. You don't need to read all of it, but you should kind of read this book, or else this is going to be a really weird night of you just asking people questions constantly.
That's interesting because so the way I started doing D&D is no one else wanted to run the game, so I had to do it. Mm-hmm. One of those, that's how most DMs start off. It's like, I want to play this game and no one else is that interested, so I'm going to learn it for them.
Yeah.
And I'm going to tell them how to play. That's kind of how I introduce people. And again, I don't recommend everyone do this. This is untenable. But I memorize the book so that other people can just say, what do I do here? And I go, okay, here's what you do. No one has to look through the book. That's my job for them, especially when they're like brand new to the game.
Yeah.
But like 10, 12 sessions in, read a couple pages, know what you can do. And that's all I'm asking. If you know what you can do, I'll take care of the rest of the game. You have fun.
I just need you to know how to find things on your D&D Beyond page.
Exactly.
That's all I need. I just need you to understand the layout of your D&D Beyond. If you don't know anything else, I just don't want to have to explain to you every time where things are.
That's 100% true, and it's actually funny you said that because I just realized in my own head I started playing this game before D&D existed or D&D Beyond existed.
Yeah.
It'd be crazy if I invented D&D, but I started playing before there was a website that had.
You're actually Gary Guy
generated. Yeah, look at me. I kind of look like the guy a little bit, just young and alive. But there is an aspect of the game that has been simplified just by having a site like D&D Beyond or other sites that aggregate character sheets, and those really didn't exist back in the day. It was mostly just paper and book. So having like a form fill sheet that just generates what a character sheet would look like for your character super simplifies a lot of the things for people. You're right.
I started with 3.0, and we had my DM had a stencil that he would like draw a character, like he would literally like, it was like a stencil that he would put down. He would circle all of the pieces of the stencil, and then that would be the like outline of our character sheet in pen would be him filling in the stencil so that we could create new characters. But we didn't even have like a PDF to print at the time, right? Because this was like 2007. And so like, we had a printer, but I didn't know how to find PDFs on the internet at that age. I mostly just used it to find porn. So
there's porn on this thing too? That's crazy.
What? Yeah. Oh, have you never? Oh, dude.
No, I've never.
Computers are wild. Basically every site is porn now. Yeah, it's crazy. Which gets into my DMing style, which is I've read the book, but I don't really know all the rules, and so I just Google everything as I'm playing. I just have a laptop there, and I'm just...
Honestly valid.
Yeah.
The only reason I was able to play this game at all is because I sat down with the book while I was watching through like 40 episodes of Critical Role.
Yeah.
And every time some like a rule I didn't understand would come up, I would look to the book to see what it said, and I would take the difference between what Matt Mercer was doing and what the book was saying and sort of be like, oh, okay, you can do whatever you want. This isn't hard and fast. You could just sort of change it willy-nilly. That's great.
So then what was the impetus to start doing content creation about D&D then? Like what was your... What was it an intentional goal of like, I want to be a pro at D&D content creation? Or was this more just like, I like this thing, so I'm going to make content around it because I have fun with it?
I was house sitting for my parents and I was really bored. And I heard about TikTok, so I was just like, that sounds like a fun afternoon. I just downloaded it, and because I was currently interested in Dungeons & Dragons, I just started talking about it. There was no plan to it. I was just like, oh, this is kind of funny. And I just recorded myself doing stupid stuff, and then people showed up, and I was like, oh, that's kind of a weird feeling that people showed up to something I did.
Do you remember the first thing that popped off?
Yes. It was me talking about how you can essentially be a like D&D bear. So you can do like a wild shape druid with a bear totem barbarian, and you can rage while you're in bear shape. And technically in the rules, that all works. And that video was like the first one. I was like, oh shit, that's more than 100 views. This is crazy. And then it got like a week later, it was sitting at like, I don't know how many, 30,000. I was just like, oh my God, what is wrong with you people?
Were you worried about people like walking up to you in public and just yelling like bear at you?
Oh God, no.
Oh, okay.
No, even still to this day, I'm not worried about that. The only time it's ever happened is at a convention. But I have had friends of friends be like, hey, check out this cool video. And they're like, oh, I know that guy.
Yeah.
Wait, what? That's the coolest thing that's happened. Actually, the one funny story is a friend of mine was getting their hair cut, and they just started talking about D&D, and they were like, "Oh, I got to share this really funny video," and they pulled out my face, and my friend was like, "Oh my god," that was pretty fun.
Yeah, I feel like the weird thing about what we do, because I've gotten recognized. Clarence and I we were in London last year, and we were there for Star Wars Celebration. So like there were a bunch of people there, but we were like in the middle of the streets of London, and this British person came like running up to us and was like, "I'm not going to do the accent, 'cause, you know, he's a real person." But
hello, it's great to meet you.
I only do bad British accents while I'm playing D&D.
Oh,
but it was that weird experience of like he knew who we were. And we make content that's so expansive that I had to be like, where do you know me from? Do you hate me because of what I've said about something?
Yeah.
Or do you like my content? Because when it's in the convention hall and there's a bunch of people around, it feels a little bit safer. But when you're on the street, you're like, anything can happen now. Are you going to leave? Are you going to follow us? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, that actually. I hope I never get recognized like in a grocery store or something. That would terrify me. But the first time it happened in like a convention center, the guy just like was looking at me from across the like group of people. He just sort of like followed me with his eyes, and I was like, I'm scared now. What happened? Then he came up to me, and I was like, what? Do I owe you money? What's going on here? He was like, no, I've seen you on Instagram or whatever. And I was like, oh, that's so cool. So
well, and it's got to happen more now, obviously. Like you're going to niche cons specific to the genre. Like Gen Con is probably a place where you get recognized a fair amount.
Yeah, that was probably actually, so the first con I ever went to was PAX East, and that's mostly video games.
Yeah.
I got a few people who recognized me there, but I didn't expect to get anyone to recognize me. Gen Con, I walked into the Oiler Stadium, I think is the cult stadium. Lucas Oil, yeah. That's where they were handing out the 2024 handbooks for people who went to Gen Con.
Yeah.
On my way to get one, I got recognized like 5 times. And that was day one. Incredibly weird to be recognized by people you don't know.
Yeah.
You know, it's one of those things where until it happens, because most of us started doing this during COVID where we couldn't go out and get recognized. So then to have an audience and have them recognize you all at once is kind of weird. You know, it's never happened before. And then all of a sudden 7 people line up and they're like, hey, sign my DMs manual. I'm like, okay. Crying in the middle of the Oilers Stadium.
I had my first experience with it before the content. I was working, I was touring with an orchestra in Japan, singing in this like Disney concert that tours every year. And it's like a Japanese orchestra that brings over American singers every year. It's incredible. But I did the like 15th anniversary tour. And so I didn't have fans, but this tour was is so popular over there that there were people who would like recognize me because they like followed me on social media for like the 4 months after I was announced before I even got there, just because they love this tour so much. That's and it was I got that like first experience of like people like walking up to me in like a cafe and buying me coffee even though I didn't know them, and I was like, I'm here on a job, like I can afford things. But it was so sweet. But it's so. It makes me think about like big celebrities who are recognized all the time. And I understand what happens when you get like your perspective gets warped over time. Because even at the level of content creator I'm at now, which I think we're small YouTubers, right? We just hit 69,000 subscribers yesterday.
Oh, yeah. A meager 69,000.
Well, but in the YouTube space now, that's nothing, right? Like that's like...
Fair.
Nowadays, like, you know, my friends Corey and Desi, like they both have channels in the millions. And so, like, the people I'm around are, like, millions and millions of people. And so I'm at a point where I can afford stuff. I make good money. Like, this is working. And I'm getting shit for free that I'm like, I'll pay for it. And I'm getting it for free. And I'm like, if you could have given this to me for free when I had 10,000 subs, I would have gone... I've grown so much faster. I don't need it free now. Yeah. I needed it free then. And it's an interesting sort of... It's weird how it sort of warps how you... start to think about it. It also puts a lot of it's a different pressure on it, right? Once it starts to become a job, and once there's expectations, and once you're producing things to put it out in a different way. And have you experienced that much, or do you still feel like it's like that fun experience that you had house sitting 4 years ago?
It's definitely gotten more fun because I've gotten better at like the stuff I make isn't as... I admit the first couple of videos I made, or the first like 100 videos I made, absolute garbage. I would not make that kind of stuff today because it's just like, who is this dude? You know? But that was also, oh my God, I don't want to look at a calendar. What was that? 6 years ago.
You started in COVID, so it's definitely less than 4.
Well, I think I started before COVID with TikTok.
Oh, you did?
It was just because I was house sitting. I was alone in my parents' house for like a week, so I had a lot of time to myself. But then COVID hit after that.
Existed before.
It had like just switched over from Musical.ly, I think.
Yeah, that's right. Oh my god, yeah. I think of TikTok and COVID starting the same day, weirdly, in my head.
Honestly, that's true for a lot of people because they're like, well, I'm stuck at that all day. Why don't I just look at my phone? But I think I was one of like the first 5 or 6 people doing D&D content on that platform.
Mm-hmm.
But we were all so small and we didn't know each other. So we just didn't, have a large community. And then COVID hit like a wave and there were just like 20, 30 more accounts doing it. And I was like, oh my God, this is awesome. There's more people. But yeah, it's still fun. I've just learned to only do it as long as it's fun.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'll go on like 2 or 3 week-long breaks where I just don't post any videos because I don't have an idea that I deem fun enough to do, and it's also not my job, so I can afford to like keep it fun and entertaining. But luckily, Cast Theory is mostly all fun so far. Yeah. Hoping to keep that alive.
That's wild. I don't think that I've gone a week without posting since like, because now that we kind of bank some content to get ahead. So like we have a few things that are in the chamber, but like we post at least a video a day on one of our channels every day and have for like 3.5 years.
That's successful.
No, it's Burnout. It's I think it's called Burnout.
It definitely Burnout. For sure Burnout, but it also is what the that cursed little word, that's what it's driving out of creators.
Yeah.
Is like you need to constantly be engaging with us, otherwise we are going to show the stuff you make to less people.
100%,
right?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's YouTube. YouTube's algorithm now is if someone doesn't click on 2 videos you post in a row, you drop down in their recommendeds. And so and we're really lucky. We have a great community of people who like come searching for our stuff, but I'm not like our friend Don Marshall, right, is the Lord of the Rings guy, right? So he makes the Lord of the Rings content, and he's great at it. He's probably the best. I love him dearly. He's also going to be a part of Heroes Without Borders.
Sick.
But his audience is like, all of his audience is all there for Lord of the Rings. And I feel like sometimes when you do a variety of things, or I think even in the TTRPG space, what gets tough is there's a point where you're like, okay, well, I've done D&D content. I'm going to cover Vampire the Masquerade, or I'm going to try and cover this other thing. That audience that's there for D&D content might not watch the 2 Vampire the Masquerade videos, and so they miss the next D&D video that would be right up their fucking alley. And you're like, I feel like the algorithm needs to get a little bit more complicated if it thinks that these people who didn't want to watch these 2 videos don't want to come back for the thing that they do like. It's tough.
It's difficult because you almost need a time machine to do that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Because you usually get an audience from doing one thing, and then eventually you're like, well, I've done this one thing, I want to try and do more things. And then they shoot you in the leg because you try to do more than one. But if you start off by saying, I'm a content creator and I'm going to do all the things I want to do, I'm going to do, I'll talk about games, I'll talk about movies, I'll talk about D&D, I'll talk about whatever. Those content creators who start off there usually do a lot better with like switching between topics. Like there's a few that I can think of right now who have been doing that basically the whole time they've been on social media, and they've done it very successfully. But people who are usually like, I talk for 40 videos in a row about D&D, I can't talk about anything else or no one's going to see it.
Yeah.
So it's that kind of like,
It's really interesting to like have an economy of ideas where you get pigeonholed into having to have ideas about the same thing. And I love D&D. Yeah. Like I think about D&D constantly, right? But at the same time, like I do think about other things, and it's so fascinating to, especially channels that really do manage to stick to just that thing. There's a part of me that's like, I don't know if I could make the same video about a slightly different topic every day for 2 years. But people do that, and they're wildly successful at it, right? Like it's not even it works. It is what the algorithm wants in a weird way.
Yeah, and I don't know if I have that in me to be like the guy who's making the same D&D video. Like, oh, here's the most broken spells in the new player's handbook. There's like 40 videos that all have the same thumbnail of the player's handbook and like one spell description, and it's like, oh, here's a broken combination. It's like that. All those videos are going to be made by like 40 different channels, You don't need those videos either, but it's what they have to do.
They will also all misread the rules intentionally in the exact same way to get comment engagement.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And that's another aspect of it, is being negative online is drastically better for your content than being positive. 100% of the time.
Or being positive but slightly wrong, right?
Yes, incorrect or negative. Those are the two.
Some of those like broken build people will, into every single video I've ever seen of them, there is one detail in it that is just flat out wrong, that is easily correctable.
At least one. And
I'm like, oh, I think it's intentional. At a certain point, you seem intelligent enough. I've watched enough of your videos where you're doing math about like how much force the moon would have crashing into the earth. You are clearly an intelligent person, but you missed like this one like sentence in the spell. I think that you left it out intentionally because your video has 90,000 comments about it and your video has 1 million views. And I'm like, are we at a point now where we are intentionally wrong a little bit sometimes because it actually makes money to be kind of off? Because that thought drives me crazy.
It is infuriating sometimes, because even in my videos where I don't intend to get information wrong, and I never get information wrong, I'll have like 90% of my comments will be everyone saying the same thing. And I'm just screaming at my phone like, any of you read any other comment that's being left, they're saying what you're saying. Stop leaving comments on my videos. I just genuinely don't like this engagement because it's everyone saying the same thing for 500 comments in a row. Like, if you think it's important enough to leave me a comment, check any of the other comments being left to see if someone said the same thing. It's the first thing I do before I comment on a video.
100%.
What? I don't understand what's going on here. But there are genuinely nice comments. I don't want people to feel discouraged about leaving nice things to say or commenting on a video.
Oh, no,
I have gotten some very, very nice comments.
I think I don't even mind if every comment is the same comment, right? Like, I think the engagement is always honest on the commenter side, but the way in which content creators try and get comments is not always honest on the content creation side.
Oh yeah. Especially, I don't know if you're on Twitter, right? Sorry, I'm not going to call it the other one. No. But that's essentially what blue check marks do now, is they try and rage bait people to retweet because they get paid if they retweet a bunch of stuff, and people only engage with it if it's incorrect or, blatantly mean.
Oh, I think we saw that in the TTRPG community last week or 2 weeks ago with the sushi in the Hero's Feast debacle.
Oh my god, I fucking hate those conversations.
But I really think the first person to start that didn't give a shit. But they're a blue check, and they're like, oh, maybe if I just complain about sushi, I'll make $50 off Elon. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And half of the things I see go viral on Twitter, I don't really go on Twitter that much. I like go on there to post about stuff that we post, and sometimes I post. I angry posted about Rings of Power today, but I don't really use it. I don't read Twitter very much because my Twitter now is awful. Clark and I, we were talking about this in a video we just shot, but like I see porn on Twitter constantly from people I don't follow.
They recently just lifted those restrictions for some reason. It actually was right after they made likes private. Then all that stuff was just not restricted anymore. It's like, wow, that's kind of weird, huh? As soon as no one can see what you're liking, all of a sudden, there's stuff that you don't want people to see you liking available on your timeline. You know?
And I'm very pro porn. I think it's a great thing. I think it's I am a big fan of it being where it should be. We talked about it at the
beginning of this show.
Well, I joke about it a lot, but like, I'm a photographer. I've shot a lot of nude stuff in my life that you can buy on people's OnlyFans. That's a reality. That's part of my life. Yeah. I'm very pro it. I'm very pro it being in places where it should be. And I think that like the For You page of Twitter isn't one of those.
That is fair.
If you're following a porn star and you're in your following page, I think that's a perfectly valid place for it to exist, right? Yeah. But I don't think that it should be. I don't think it should ever be pushed. And that's the line for me.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's the thing that was lifted recently, is now it's starting to be like okay for their algorithm to push it to people who've like interacted with, people who do OnlyFans content. They also do other things, 100%. But because they also do OnlyFans content, the algorithm's like, oh, you like this stuff, smut. We're just gonna put it in your face all the time. It's like, okay, calm down. I'm at work.
Yeah. I'm opening Twitter on a plane. I really don't want this to be the first thing that pops up.
Yeah. I'm watching something I'm trying to hide from people, and I don't want them to see what's on my phone either. Now I look like a double pervert.
I need a privacy screen so bad.
Yeah.
Oh
We
my
all
god,
need little chips in our brain. That's
this
what
is
we
a
need.
bad story, but I was flying. I was doing a show. I won't say where, because I was doing a show away from New York City years ago, and I was flying to the gig on like a red eye the night before rehearsal started,
Hmm.
and everyone on the plane was asleep, and except this one girl who was one row ahead of me across the aisle, and she was
Uh-oh.
on her iPad, like scrolling through her nudes, deleting things, like clicking things off and deleting them. And so for this entire flight, I'm just like not looking, but like being like, what is that? Like she's on an iPad, like full brightness. I was so baffled. We get off the
That's
plane,
confident.
and then we start walking the same way towards baggage claim, and I'm like, I'm never going to interact with this woman. It doesn't matter. And
Hmm.
then I find the like theater operations manager at the van with like our
Oh
names
God.
on it, and she and I start walking towards the van together, and I was like, oh no, oh God no, oh this is, and I never told her, I never said a word about it because I was like I don't want to broach this conversation, but it was the most uncomfortable van ride I've ever been on in my life, as
I
she's
would
like
imagine.
trying to get to know me and like asking me all these questions, and I'm like, yeah, no, yeah, I've been in New York for a few years. I was like, hey, you know,
That's that's like I think you should leave sketch.
yeah,
That
yeah,
I
yeah,
could see that being on that show. That's so.
yeah,
I,
it was
I would
wild.
say funny. It was funny, but it's also super awkward.
It's funny now. In the moment, I thought I was gonna
Retrospect.
die. Like I was like, if
Yeah.
this van drives off the highway and we all die, and well, no, if they, I want them to live, but if I die, I'm okay with it right now.
Yeah. I'll save their life and I'll die in the
Yeah.
process, and we'll all be good. Yeah, that's
So
awesome.
you spent a few
Uh,
years now. You've been building your empire of TikTok dominance in the D&D
Empire.
space. Yeah, you've got
I would. I wouldn't
it's a
call it an
Shika
empire.
empire. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I've
You've
been there
conquered
like
nations.
I've been there twice as long as most people who have double my following.
Hmm.
I don't know if I'd call that an empire.
I think
I'm
that's
present.
called
I'm
you take
actively
2 and 3 week
present.
breaks.
That's fair.
Yeah.
I did take a 2-year break at one point because I was doing other shit, and I was just like, nope.
That might be part of it. But
Yeah.
you've decided we're going to get into the action part of the podcast. You've decided to start your own actual play with some
Yeah.
fellow TikTokers.
Yes, yes, yes.
What was the
Uh,
like genesis of that idea?
the genesis of that idea happened actually. I think it was during the first year of COVID. As I started doing more stuff, I started getting into like looking at other systems and what
Mm-hmm.
other games could offer. Because as we all said, we get burned out on the topic we're talking about for 3-4 months straight. We need a little break. And I started looking at a game called City of Mist. I don't know if
Mm-hmm.
you've ever experienced that. It's essentially a superhero detective kind of game where everyone has these strange powers, and you, I'm pretty sure you work on like a detective kind of beat.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that idea really intrigued me. And over the years, I've talked a few times at different points about running those sort of like detective stories or like trying to solve crimes, but in a D&D world with D&D's rules and mechanics.
Yeah.
Because people always talk about how that's not possible, and it makes me really mad because it's like super possible and very rewarding and makes for great storytelling. But people are always like, no, you can talk to the dead, you can revivify people, it doesn't matter. It's like, oh, fuck you, it's possible. I'll show you one day, Dad. And then you know, I grabbed a group of friends, and eventually 3 years later, after I had that idea, we set to playing a game, and
Oh,
it's
so
called
you guys have
Burnout.
been playing that for years.
No, sorry, I had the idea like 4 or 5 years ago. Did nothing with it until like
Oh, okay.
last month. Then we started, you know, putting this game together. But yeah, uh, it's been a lot of fun
Mm-hmm.
putting this idea together and getting the cast involved and you know something you've had sitting in the back of your mind actually being realized. It's a very fulfilling feeling. And if anyone has one of those ideas all the way back here you've been holding on to for like 5 years, pursue it, because I've never felt more gratified by anything I've produced. You know, it's one of those weird pieces of content where even if the metrics aren't as big or like strong. You don't have as many high numbers as you would on other pieces of content you usually have. It's way more satisfying. Even if the number's small, it's like, yay, people are seeing it. It's fun.
Yeah, we definitely experience that because we have Astral Dusk, which is our like weekly D&D
Mhm.
game, and the metrics on that are like terrible. It's a money loss for us,
Yeah,
paying everyone to be a part of it. But for us, it is also like the one piece of our content that we wouldn't stop doing. Like all the stuff
yeah,
that makes
exactly.
money, we would drop for something else. But Astral Dusk is like our favorite thing to do.
Yeah, that's 100%. So
Hmm.
yeah, you know exactly what I mean. It's like one of those. It's a passion project. Even if it was failing financially, you'd still want it to succeed or like
Yeah.
continue because it's fulfilling in a lot of ways.
Yeah, and
But
I
yeah.
think that's also, it's so tough right now with the actual play space because it's so much and it's an inherently long form like medium. And so
Hmm.
the ask of the audience is high, right? I think of
Yeah.
and I feel lucky going into that space because my audience has always been here for long form content, right? Like our
Hmm.
book club, our podcast where we cover fantasy novels, the Nerdy Wordy Book Club that we do on Fridays is a 3 hour show and has been a 3 hour show
Wow.
every Friday for 3 years. And so the audience that's been like sticking with us is used to showing up for kind of these like long, ridiculous, probably not very good pieces of content. Uh, and I think like the going the other way, because for you, it's like asking your audience that's been there for like 20-second videos to expand to that kind of like 2 hour time slot. That is, have
Yeah.
you, what has been your thinking about how to like kind of transition from being a short form creator to one of the longer pieces of content you can make nowadays?
So I'm actually, and I think this community and this like art, I don't want to say art form, but this medium
I
is
would say art
very
form.
blessed. It's yeah, we're artists here, dude.
A
It's
hundred
very
percent.
blessed. It's blessed in the fact that a lot of people are introduced to this hobby through Critical Role. They're
Mm,
introduced through long form content that has existed for years. They have a huge library that people binge through.
mm-hmm.
So TTRPGs and actual plays are blessed in the way that like people kind of expect long form content from them. It's the way people engage with this hobby when they can't play it in person. So the transition from making short form skits about it to having people watch a full D&D campaign isn't difficult as long as the campaign is good,
Yeah,
which is
yeah,
the I would say the bigger distinguisher between like if you're going to ask for 4 hours of someone's time, they need to enjoy those 4 hours.
yeah.
If they don't enjoy those 4 hours, you've just wasted 4 hours of their time and they will not come back.
Mm-hmm.
So that's I think the bigger factor in whether or not people are going to watch the show you make.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's so interesting. I love that you put it that way because I get so nervous about long form content because
Hmm.
like I just watched most of Suits in 10-second chunks on TikTok for like a year, and
Yeah.
there's been a part of me that's always nervous that that's where we're going. That like someone is going to experience Apocalypse Now in 10-second bursts on TikTok,
Yeah.
and that's going to be like the way they experience movies. Um, and as I love cinema, I also love like long form actual play.
Mhm.
It's a medium that I think is so unique in the way it draws out sort of long form improv.
Yeah.
Because I love improv, but I get really tired quickly of short form. The let's tell as many jokes as possible within a 4.5 minutes version of it. Uh,
Right.
Whereas
That does
long form
suck.
improv, like well, yeah, and like Middle Ditch and Schwartz are kind of their Netflix
Oh, I love
specials were
those
so
guys.
special to me to
Yeah.
have sort of
Of-
the art form of long form improv put out there, and then I realized that actual plays have been kind of just doing that, right?
Yeah. They take the prompt and then they run with it for an hour, and it's like that's basically what D&D is, except we come back the next day and continue that prompt
Mm-hmm.
for like 3 years. You know,
If you're lucky,
sometimes.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. But I think the biggest thing about people watching D&D is they get invested and they have time to get invested in the story being told, the people at the table, both the characters they're playing and the actual people behind the dice. So it does, I don't know, it has a certain staying power that a lot of other media doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can, after Deadpool and Wolverine came out, my timeline was just clips of that show or that movie, even though I hadn't seen it yet, spoiling the entire thing in 2-minute increments. And that's how people tend to break down Hollywood media once it comes out and is released. But something like this, you actually get attached to, sometimes parasocially, you get attached to the people behind the show as well as the content they're producing, which is something that brings people back, I think, to long form content.
One of my favorite comments I ever got on a YouTube video was on a reaction video where we posted, it was a new Netflix movie, and we posted a reaction 3 days after it had come out. And someone commented on the video "Oh my God, I can't believe you spoiled the end of the movie." And I was like, we reacted to the whole movie. I don't know what you mean. Why did you click on a reaction video if you didn't want to see the end of what we thought of the end of the movie?
I love those comments.
It was years ago, and I think about it weekly. It's really, it's amazing the way that the internet works.
Yeah, you did this to me. Your video ruined the movie for me, even though it was titled, "We're going to talk about everything in this movie, so don't watch if you don't want to watch it."
Well, then we play clips. Our movie reaction's an hour long. They sat through 45 minutes of us playing clips from the movie to get to that point where they felt spoiled. To this day, part of me thinks it must be a joke. It has to be that in a previous video I had said something about spoilers or something, and it was playing off something I didn't realize. But I want it to be real. I really want it to be real.
Because even when I see, because I watch the Red Letter Media movie reviews for stuff that comes out. But if I'm interested in seeing the movie they're talking about, I won't watch the video until I've seen the movie.
Yeah.
And then I can go watch the review of it because I know they're gonna spoil it. I don't know why people don't understand that and go, "Oh, I shouldn't watch this if I haven't seen it unless I'm okay being spoiled."
Yeah,
that's crazy.
I can't imagine clicking, because Red Letter Media reviews are usually 40 minutes. They're not short.
Oh yeah, they're long.
And the idea that you would click on a 40-minute review and think that they don't spoil anything. What are they talking about for 40 minutes if they spoil nothing?
Yeah, in the first 12, they talk about it unspoilingly, usually, and then they cut and say, "We're going to spoil it," and then they go. But I don't even watch that part, because it's even that could spoil something for me, you know? Yeah. So I don't understand the mindset of somebody who watches your full reaction and is like, "Wait a minute, you guys showed parts of the movie I haven't seen. That's not okay with me." Sorry to get John Mulaney on you right there.
It was a good John Mulaney. I want to know more about Chaos Theory, though. So you guys are filming it live on Twitch and then editing it later for YouTube? Is that what I saw?
No, it is fully pre-recorded.
Oh,
so
okay.
we record the show just on our own schedule, because trying to fit in a solid stand-in day of the week to record has not worked in the past. I've been part of other actual plays that did that. And everyone was like, "Hey, I kind of want my Friday night back. I don't want to surrender it to this game every week." So there was a lot of cancellations. But we found that pre-recording allows us to be more fluid with when we record. And consistently, the show goes live on Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern on my personal channel. And then the following Monday, it gets uploaded to YouTube. And it's also edited down into an audio podcast.
So it's the Critical Role method.
Yes, but the Critical Role, I don't know about their podcast. It isn't edited. It's just the audio from the show, as far as I can remember.
Oh,
I
so
actually
you do a separate video, or you do a separate audio track for the podcast.
The show has 3 different edits, and I again don't recommend anyone do that because it's a nightmare. But
wild.
The Twitch stream has its own edit with 10-minute breaks so people can come in, go to the break during the live stream, and then it ends. The YouTube has that stuff cut out, and it's just the show. And then the audio version is, we all individually record our audio, and I edit it down because audio doesn't lend itself the same way that the video does. If you can see us rolling dice and doing math and doing table talk, that doesn't translate well to the audio podcasts I've seen in the past. So if you can just cut out people doing math and you ask for the roll and you immediately have the roll, just cuts off 30 seconds that the audience member doesn't need to stare at the road not having anything said to them, so
yeah, our show, because we plug it all into the Rodecaster Pro and we have one single track coming out of there, our audio version of all our podcasts is just the full thing. You get
That's totally fine.
that full experience. Because honestly, for me, editing it would be a nightmare. Because we have live music while it's playing, and so
Yeah.
I feel like I would be like cutting the music in a weird sort of. But because you're pre-recorded, you don't have to worry about that.
Well, yeah. So I have an like a thing on my side that plays music for the live stream, but that isn't captured on everyone's audio, so I can edit that a lot easier and just add in music after the fact. But I don't necessarily recommend people do it this way. It's a lot of work. It's a lot more work than you do.
It sounds like a lot. Like editing the audio version sounds like a crazy amount of work.
Yeah. I've heard every episode like 7 times, and I kind of hate my own voice. So.
Oh yeah, I bet. We don't even edit our own. I edit almost nothing of ours anymore because I can't look at myself anymore. I've gotten to the point where like I just don't want to see or hear my face.
That's where I am right now. But the show's got to get out there.
Yeah. What? So you're 3 episodes in, right? Plus some session zeros.
Yes. Yes, we're about to air our 4th episode. Whenever this goes up, sometime. It's tomorrow, as of recording.
So your 4th episode will have gone on YouTube today, for the people who
catch
this the day it comes out. Yeah.
Yes, it will probably go up later than you upload this because it goes up around 3:00 Eastern time.
Great.
I made a conscious decision to upload it at the exact same time that Critical Role episodes go up on their channel, so you get the 2 alerts at the same time.
Hey, I mean, it's a whole Pavlov's dog situation, right? You want people to associate you with Critical Role so you can go beyond Critical Role, right?
Yeah, and soon enough, I'm going to replace our thumbnails with theirs so you don't know which one to click on. That's how we get all the views, baby.
And you steal their title.
Yeah. And I also just pretend to be Matt Mercer on Twitter.
Tonight's episode of Critical Role starts in 1 hour. In this episode, Bell's Hells will...
Hello, everyone.
What is the like biggest lesson you feel like you've learned in the early stages of launching a new actual play?
Ooh, I think the biggest lesson I've learned is to be okay adjusting your expectations for things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because almost at every step of the process, pre-production for the show, all the way to like actually launching it live, nothing has met where I expected it to be, but in a good way, if that makes any sense. Like I had to adjust where my mind was at to be able to see a better version of what I was going to put out. And I think a lot of that has to do with the players being a voice in the show. It's not just my idea. Once I invite people to be a part of it, it is, a collective. It is a collective thing that we're all doing together, and they really helped me see a better vision for what we were all doing together, rather than just the tunnel vision I had on this idea for the past 4 years. And it's been a blast.
Yeah, I just had a moment like that recently where I kind of I had this divine intervention moment where one of the characters spoke to their god, and the god kind of laid out, because I didn't want to railroad them, but I was like, I'm going to give them like 3 ways to move forward from here to the next thing. Yeah. And so I laid out kind of 3 pathways for them. And then they got together, and there's an entire session of the show that is just them arguing about what to do next around breakfast. It's 2 hours long. Nothing else gets done.
Yeah.
It might be the best episode of the show because I'm having a blast just sitting there being like, just fucking pick something. Like I'm like watching myself get visibly frustrated as I'm like, guys, just make any decision, please. And they ended up doing a 4th thing that they were like, we're going to go to the Feywild. And I was like, oh, okay, great. I guess I will come up with that for you then. Cool. And then we ended up spending 7 sessions at the Feywild that I didn't expect to happen. So it's so interesting when you're like, because in a weird way, as the dungeon master of any actual play, you are like the producer of the show, in that you're the only person with the knowledge of anything that's going to happen before everybody shows up. Unless you're cheating. Don't cheat. Unless you want to. I don't care. No, I wasn't speaking to you. I was speaking to the audience.
Oh, yeah, guys.
I was speaking to Matt Mercer, who pre-writes the entire session, and they do it memorized.
Those shows are scripted.
Yeah. Just 5 hours of scripted dialogue.
They have to memorize all their lines beforehand. It gets pretty chaotic.
I I would quit immediately. If I was like on an actual play and they're like, oh, here's actually the script, I'd be like, I cannot possibly memorize this every week. That's impossible. I don't work on a
Yeah.
daytime soap. I'm not memorizing 40 pages a day.
I think every person who's ever said that Critical Role or any of these actual plays are scripted has never played D&D before.
Yeah.
That's my conspiracy theory. Is that all these conspiracy theories are just people who are wildly uninformed.
Yeah, it's so fascinating, right? Because I feel like if you've played D&D, you kind of know that you sit down with your DM and you're like, this is kind of what I'm thinking for the story of this character.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, you know, like, I don't think that people plan out every beat of it, but I know generally what my players want to do. And I wouldn't want to play D&D without that knowledge, because it's really hard to... I think it's hard to engage in sort of long form storytelling where the players are, where, you know, the majority of the people engaging in that storytelling are in the dark 85% of the time, right?
Yeah.
Like there's got to be a point where you're working on the same team. And then there's points where you're not, but there has to be a few here and there.
Yeah, and especially like giving the players their own moments for agency is
Mm-hmm.
one of the best things you as a DM can do, because one, you're giving the player something they want to explore, and two, you don't have to write it.
Yeah.
You don't have to do shit. You don't have to prep. They came up with the idea. Just go with it. You know what I mean? I don't have to work. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for being part of the story.
I think a great moment for that I will always remember is in Campaign 2 of Critical Role. There's a moment where Liam is describing this tower that he's come up with independent of Matt, right? And it's this like hour-long description of a place that Matt Mercer's just like, do whatever the fuck you want. Like, it's your tower. Like, I don't care. And I was like, oh, that is such a... Just being like, just describe it yourself is such a great tool for GMs to be like, you have been here before. Tell me about it. What was it like? And then, you know, the players kind of get to have that moment of, oh, right. What would I want a bar to look like in the city my character's from? What would I want this seamstress's shop to look like? And then as a GM, you just kind of get to take a break mentally. Because I will always hold D&D for the DM is a lot of labor. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of mental energy for 4-5 straight hours to hold everything and to juggle all the balls and to be like saying a monologue about a villain, but then like thinking about what the like archway you're about to describe looks like and trying to like, you know, and anytime you can kind of pass some work off to your players if they're down, I think it's a great thing to do.
Yeah, for sure. I also, in this might be one of my hot takes, but it's probably not the one I'm going to bring up later.
Oh, okay.
I don't like when people are like, oh, the DM's also a player. It's like, no. No, they're not. They do vastly more work than any of you fuckers. Yeah. How dare you? As much as their fun is important and they should be enjoying themselves, they are the person who puts most of the work forward to actually have this game. Like if one of the players is sick and can't make it, we find a way to continue the session. Maybe their character's off doing something else. If the DM is out that day, the session doesn't happen. That's the difference between a DM and a player, right? So it's like, you know, if you can help them out, great, but know that they are juggling a lot of things, especially. So I don't know. That does get me a little peeved when I was like, the DM's a player, guys. You should remember that. It's like, no, I'm not. Stop saying that.
I like that sentiment because of the idea that it is important for the DM to also be having a good time.
Yes.
Right. And
that is also a concept. I think that's why people say it mostly, but
I sometimes
there are other
bristle.
People who are like,
No, I hear what you're saying. Like it's not about. I totally agree with you, but there is also I bristle at the people who play D&D to beat the DM.
Oh, those people suck, and they always lose. And that's the funniest part.
Well, yeah, they always lose, and it's just a bad experience for everyone because it's awkward to be at the table with them. The DM's clearly not having a good time because they feel like they're just being batted down every time they bring something up, and the player who does that is always constantly trying to bring everybody except one person at the table onto their side, right? And so it naturally sort of gangs up on somebody. And if that
Yeah.
person is the most charismatic person there and they can kind of bring people in, it
Mhm.
like verges into bullying in a way that is really uncomfortable to be around.
Yeah, it's a very toxic table dynamic.
Mm-hmm.
And the ones I've seen where people are like, that's the player that's trying to beat the DM, they usually try and like control what other people are doing in the game to
Mm-hmm.
like collect them and force their actions to support their weird cockamamie scheme that they're trying to win the game with, you know. And it's like that's not what this other player wants to do. Stop trying to drag people into your nonsense. If you want to try and beat me, let's have that conversation, but don't force them to try and follow your idea because it usually is, you know, not what they want to do, right?
One of the ways I feel like I've gotten around that a little bit is in early sessions, but not as much in later sessions. I will not let players offer ideas during combat to other players. I just cut that off. And eventually, like, once you're 10 sessions in, I don't care as much because once a player kind of knows their own character well enough that they have ideas for what they want to do, they will. Then the combats get more difficult, and so you kind of, if you're working together to beat a dragon that has some crazy shit, I'm more open to you talking throughout the combat about what to do as a team.
Yeah,
But in early
for
sessions,
sure.
I find that just stepping as a DM, be like, it's not your turn. I like, this is a new character to you. Figure
Yeah.
it out. Like, take a minute. I'm not going to rush you. I'm not like timing your combat turn, but take a time for you to figure out what your character does in situations like this. And then once we're all a little comfortable with our characters, we can have the crosstalk and we can kind of do those things. And I find that it sets a good expectation for those players that want to kind of like win combat
Yeah.
and who want to kind of like be like, well, if you do this, I can do this, and they kind of just take over people's turns. That by the time I stop doing that and I pull back a little bit, the camaraderie of the table is a little bit more engaged in people doing their own thing. And so I typically like for the first few sessions, I'm like, you can't say that to them yet. You can't give them that information yet because it's their turn and they gotta.
Right. It,
Yeah.
it allows that player to develop their character's identity in a weird
Mm-hmm.
way, without, you know, outside influence from other players. I think that's a fine idea. You know, if someone's a newer player, they might like ask questions. I think that's fine.
100%.
But if another player's ever like, you should do this because it's beneficial to, you know, this person and this person, it's like, stop it. Let them do their own thing. You can chime in like 3 sessions. But yeah, I think that's fine.
Yeah, it's also for me. It's like let people fuck up. Like all my favorite combat moments in D&D are trying to recover from a mistake.
Mm-hmm. Those are the best moments. Mistakes are the best thing about D&D.
Mm-hmm.
I love failure as a
So
player
much.
and as a DM. I love failure so much. It's so funny.
Yeah, it's natural ones are the best part of Dungeons and Dragons.
Not
It's
even
what-
natural one. I'll screw up on a 10. I don't give a shit. I love failing so much. I'll set my DCs twice as high as everyone else.
That's fun.
great.
I dig that.
Yeah.
What are you, without spoiling anything for your players? What are you most excited about the future of Chaos Theory?
Honestly, I'm excited to see what the group turns into.
Mm-hmm.
Because they have a very interesting dynamic as characters and players. I'm very interested to see how their interpersonal like dynamic grows.
Mm-hmm.
Because for anyone who hasn't watched the show, they are essentially playing like a detective aspect of the city's guard, and they solve crimes. I just realized I just completely forgot to mention what the show is. But yeah, they are playing like detectives in a magic fantasy city that I've designed, and I'm very interested to see how their interpersonal conflicts and personal like biases from their characters' backstories interact with, you know, the city's laws and how people view certain aspects of the law. And, you know, one of the biggest ones, and the players already know this, so it's not a spoiler, is that necromancy is illegal in the city.
Mm-hmm.
So anything like revivify or speak with dead or anything like that is illegal. The players still get access to that magic if they choose to take those spells, but it is against the law, which they are set to upheld. Mm-hmm. So if any of them die and they come back to life, they have to explain that to somebody. Mm-hmm. And they might get in trouble, or if they, talk to a corpse, find out a piece of evidence, they still have to explain away how they found that out without just like bringing it to the guards. Like, oh yeah, I talked to the dead guy's wife, or I talked to the dead guy, and he told us all this stuff. They can't really do that because, again, it is against the law. So those are more interesting aspects I want to see how they butt heads with.
Yeah, I guess the question is, do the police follow the law? That is that's a topic to, I think that actual play is a great medium to talk about things like that, right? It's a great in on difficult topics, and I love you exploring that.
I definitely, my favorite thing to do as a DM is just to not even come up with a solution to a problem, just sort of like place a moral situation in front of the players and then just slowly fade into the woodwork and let them figure it out with each other. That shit's awesome. And these players are really, really smart. I'm very happy with who I have.
You have a great cast, right? It's Zach the Bold, Fluffy Goomba.
Christian. We have Sarah's Coffee, and we also have Leah Chameleon, who is a cosplayer and sort of starting off in the TTRPG space. They're in a few other one-shots in games currently, but yeah.
Incredible cosplayer.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my God. I've stacked the house with talent, more so than I currently possess in my body. So I'm very happy to have everyone on board. It's been a delight, honestly. I couldn't have expected it to go as good as it has been so far.
That's awesome. I'm so happy. You posted the coolest thing on Twitter, which was your like global demographics, like by location of people watching the show.
That's our RSS feed for the podcast. It shows like a map of the world, and it'll show like little red dots for every city and like area that it's been downloaded in. And watching that map fill out over the past like 2 weeks has been incredibly fulfilling in a weird way. It's been like very validating to see all these different people, all over the world get access to the show and listen. That's been really fun to see. You don't usually get metrics like that. You usually get like, well, 40 people listened to it in the past, 10 hours. And I was really interested to see like a global representation of where the show is actually traveling to. I did not expect like people in Alaska are listening to it. There's people in like Australia. I think there's some people in like, I forget where, but it was like, it was Cuba. It wasn't Hawaii. It was the other side of Florida. So there's like a few people in Cuba listening to it. It was really fun to watch that map glow up over the past few weeks.
Well, and I think that is the benefit of you guys all, a lot of your cast being TikTokers, and like the kind of the way that algorithm pushes your names globally in a way that I think wouldn't have been as successful internationally even like 10 years ago, right? We're in a time where we YouTube gives us really like crazy analytics. If you really want to go deep on YouTube, and it's like I can see like cities around the world that have viewers, let alone like countries, and it's like such a weird. Cool. It's cool. I love it. Like it's sometimes I try not to go too deep on it because I don't want to get obsessed with my numbers. Like that's something that scares me. But
that's why I like. Oh, sorry.
No. What were you gonna say?
That's why I really liked the map aspect because it wasn't a number that I had to worry about continuously going up. It was just like a fun little like, oh, look, it got to Australia this week. That's so cool. It was like, oh, there's a few listeners in, I don't know if China has access to Spotify. I don't think it would show it there. But I don't know if they have access to our media. I think they're kind of I don't know
either. I have no idea. No, it is a fun thing about TikTok that it has brought people around the world to the content that you make, and that's great.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see where you guys go with it. It's been fun so far. I like the Gladiator match in episode 1. It's a good time. I recommend it.
It is a good time.
It's a great cast.
Well, thank you.
And I'm very excited to see what you guys do with it.
Thank you.
But I think it's time for you to file a formal complaint, unfortunately.
Am I suing somebody?
Yeah, this is a class action lawsuit. It's a good way to make money if you work in restaurants in New York City. You don't have to do anything. Yeah, I always joke. I worked for 3 restaurants for a significant amount of time in New York, and I've gotten money from a class action lawsuit from everyone.
Is that because people sue the restaurant?
Yeah, one time was because of the whole Mario Batali scandal. One time was because a manager or the owner was skimming tips, and the other time I can't talk about.
Okay, interesting. So what you're telling me is I shouldn't go to a restaurant in New York?
Oh, no, go to the restaurant. Just know that at some point those waiters will get money from that restaurant because of something that has nothing to do with the food.
That.
Yeah.
Hell yeah, let's go. I'll support it. I love waiters getting paid more.
It's honestly great. One time it was like $1,200. I was like, yeah, I'll take $1,200 randomly one day. Just arrived in the mail.
$1,200?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
I was like,
that's crazy.
I didn't even know they were stealing my tips. That's wild.
That's how you found out they were stealing money from you? Was a check in the mail?
I got like a letter from a lawyer with a check that was like, we're estimating about this much of your tips was stolen over the like 7 months you worked there. And I was like, oh, cool, good to know.
That's actually probably the best way to find out you've been stolen from. Is with a letter that says, here's all the stuff we stole from you. Sorry about that. It's like, okay, cool.
Yeah, I wasn't even mad. I was just, I just kind of sat on my couch. I was like, huh, okay, weird. The restaurant wasn't around anymore, so it wasn't even like I could like go get revenge or anything, you know?
Well, probably why. He's stealing everybody's tip.
Yeah. All right, what is your hottest of hot takes? File a formal complaint with me, your lawyer. I am now on retainer for future battles with your DM. You can call me in, and no, don't call me to help.
I was gonna say I don't have a DM. I haven't had a DM. In years.
You are like me. You're a forever DM.
Yeah. We're a kindred spirits.
I love it.
My hottest take. I have had a lot of those.
Mm-hmm.
I've had a lot of
kind of your job.
People. It is, yeah. I've had a lot of arguments with people over the years. I think the one I'm most known for is my take on Rangers. So I'll probably leave that where it is.
I'm for now. We don't have to. This.
No. God no. I think Rangers deserve more respect than they get. That's all I'm going to say on the topic. No one come for me.
I don't think it's a hot take. I also don't think it's a good take. But I think it's like a.
Yeah. Oh no, it's definitely not a hot take. Most people agree that the Rangers have been kind of dirty, dirty. But I think my hottest take would probably be that the new counterspell is better than the old one.
Ooh, okay. We can actually argue about something. This is great.
Ooh,
great
here
take.
We go. All right,
I hate it.
I was looking through my old videos and I was like, really? This is going to be interesting. Now we'll both be lawyers.
I despise it.
Really? Okay, tell me why.
Because it's too meaningless.
It's too meaningless.
Yeah, you have to lose. They have to lose the slot.
They have to lose the slot if you're expending your third level spell slot.
If you counterspell and the spell gets countered, it was still cast. And as long as they just get to do it again the next turn, all you've done is slow things down.
Okay, but exchanging a third level spell slot for a ninth level spell slot is kind of fucked. Sure.
And I think that is a broken part of it. But how often are you actually counterspelling ninth level spell slots?
Every time.
No. But in D&D, like in the actual plane of D&D, how often are players in a situation where they're playing against someone who has ninth level spell slots? Realistically.
That's fair, but they're almost always countering a higher level spell.
Sure, and there's a role for it, and there's like, but this gets into the same thing that I feel about legendary action or legendary resistances, where if they're gonna be in the game, if it's going to be a thing that you can like, if it is a box for the players to check in the beating of a boss, making the counterspell just pushing the boss's meter swarm back a turn, to me is just slowing. You're just slowing the game down. If the meter swarm's going to come out eventually, no matter what, not having the counterspell end that spell from coming later on is just a delay tactic in a game that doesn't need any more delay tactics.
True, but it also gives you the information that the spell is coming and the ability to prepare for it better. Yeah,
and that's a good argument for it.
Yeah. So again, I don't disagree with your take on it. I do think that I can take or leave the fact that they keep the spell slot, honestly. My bigger thing is that counterspell as it existed in 2014 was too easy for lower level wizards to succeed on. Like you used your charisma modifier, your intelligence modifier, which was already usually a 5.
Yeah.
And you add that to the roll. It didn't take into account how good you were as a caster or what level you were. Whereas now changing it to a DC save sort of balances that out, where you can't just have like a bard with a +5 to charisma roll an incredibly high like skill check to just automatically
I
beat
feel
a
though
level 20 caster.
you've now just taken a roll from the players and given it to the DM though, right? Like they're now rolling. The DM is now rolling again against the with what I think it's Constitution, right?
It's a Constitution save, like a concentration check.
So I think that if you've built a sorcerer baddie, right, who has an advantage on Constitution saves,
Mhm.
the chance of you failing that check are not super high, and you have
Right.
taken a roll away from the players and given another roll to the DM. And so I think that the thing that I like about 2014 is that it is something the player is doing, as opposed to something the player is like, as opposed to it being something the player is saying, DM roll for me, which is what it kind of has become.
Yeah. So you're
I
affecting the person who's casting the spell with the spell, so they have to save from. Again, I understand where you're coming from. It does kind of seem like it's taking that agency away from the player and giving the DM something they can roll behind a screen and lie about. I do hate those elements of the game as well, when it's like the DM could just say whatever they want happened. But on the other side of that, players can now add like their saving throw bonuses from like a paladin or bless or anything like that. They can add those to the save from being countered.
That's true.
So it does kind of even out in the wash.
Yeah.
The players get those bonuses too.
I have a paladin in my game that's my buddy Brian is just a really smart guy, and he's built a paladin that is just so annoying.
Paladins kind of suck as a DM from the DM perspective.
I can't hit him. He has like a +6 to every save. He's only level 7, right? And he has like 20 AC. I can't a +6 to every saving throw. He's shield master, so if he saves, he takes 0 damage. He doesn't even take half. And so the problem is that all of my things hit higher and hit harder. And so my poor bard and fucking sorcerer are just taking every blast and just getting knocked unconscious constantly because I'm just trying to do something to this paladin.
Paladins are almost always like, they're so good at doing a little bit of everything that they're sort of like difficult to challenge more so than like, oh, the wizard's not strong, I'll just knock him off a cliff or something. It's always like the paladin is strong and he's resilient and he's hard to hit and he has good saving throws. He's got like a little bit of everything. He can also heal himself if he goes too low. They're very difficult.
He has great roleplay stuff built in.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. God, I love the way Baldur's Gate handled that stuff.
Yeah.
How do you feel about the smite changes?
Wait, let's talk about that in 1 second. But I just want to say this about Baldur's Gate 3. I broke my oath as a paladin because I saved the gnomes from slavery. I killed the dwarves, the Dorgar dwarves that had the gnomes enslaved in the mine. And then I got to my camp that night and the Oathbreaker paladin was there and he's like, "You broke your oath, dude." And I was like, "I saved people." It was the only fight I had done that day. And I was like, I really don't know how I could have done this. I saved gnomes from slavery. What was my oath? What did
what else are you?
I don't.
Do you know what
I was like
subclass
Oath of Redemption. So maybe that was why. But I was genuinely I can't possibly tell you how. It didn't matter because I'm doing a honor mode jack of all trades. I'm trying to get both trophies in one. So I'm taking one level in every thing. So my class doesn't matter. But I was baffled. I was like, well, Larian Studios, what are you saying right now?
That is kind of weird. Some of the ways you can just completely relinquish your oath, and it's like, what? I told a lie. I can't lie. Fuck you.
Well, it's the way in which Baldur's Gate is not D&D to me, right?
Yes.
The thing about D&D is that the DM is a negotiable. And in Baldur's Gate 3, it isn't. The game has to have some restrictions because of the video game element. And so you kind of end up in a place where there are some things about it that are so close to D&D, but they're just not quite there. And the Oathbreaker Paladin's one of them. There's no negotiation over did I actually break my oath or not, which is definitely what my player would bring to me at a normal table.
Yeah. But that Oathbreaker guy, he's pretty cool.
I love the new smites.
You do?
I think smiting's broken. Because we're playing 2014 rules right now. And the choosing to smite after you roll to me is just so broken as an idea. And
Yeah. Still
the
can't do that. They can just only do it once.
right, you can only do it once a turn. Whereas like my
Yeah.
paladin right now can, after being hasted, can smite 4 times in a turn, which just
Yeah, that's
seems
crazy.
crazy. Like it's nuts. And I think that limiting that alone is a good change to me, because it does mean that the output, and granted it's output that's somewhat limited by spell slots, but
Mhm.
I don't run a. This is partially a style thing on my part. I don't run a lot of combat where we're doing 6 combats a day.
Yeah.
I don't run those kind of games very often. I typically have a big combat every 2 or 3 days of play,
Okay.
and so for me, like my characters are usually rested for fights. I don't do a lot of like spell drainage mechanics
Right.
before a big fight, and so
That's more fun.
it can be fun, but it's also draining in actual play. Like I find for actual, because we're a show, doing a bunch of little goblin fights just it does. There's no story in that really. There's not like
Yeah. No, sorry, I'm agreeing with you. It's more fun to have your
oh
players
yeah
like fully gassed up every fight because it makes for
yeah.
more cinematic stuff.
Well, and
Yeah.
so I think that so what's fun about that is that we fight crazy things, right? Like they're only level 7, and
Yeah.
they fought a Tiamat Hydra thing that I created,
Cool.
and they kicked its ass. Partially because this pissed me off. We have the like spell cards, the like official WotC spell cards,
Oh,
and
cool.
so my bard was casting slow, and so we read it off the card because I was like, I don't actually know the rules for slow. What is it?
Uh-huh.
We ran slow wrong for like 8 sessions because
Whoa.
there's text missing from the spell card that's in the full spell. But there's like,
those cards have some issues.
yeah, and it's like the constitution save at the end of each turn to see if you get out of the slow. And I'm
Yeah.
like, my fucking hag would have been out of this slow an hour and a half ago.
That's the worst part to miss too, is the fact that you can escape it at any point.
And so if you watch the show, I'm sorry, it's wrong. What's your take about the smites? I want to hear it.
I agree with you, honestly. The only thing it does change that I think is sort of hidden to most people is that you cannot smite as an attack of opportunity anymore. But that's like the only thing that I think might get missed at a lot of tables because it requires the bonus action now. But other than that, I mean, even including that, I think the new smites are way better. Being able to smite every attack as a paladin is crazy amounts of damage that you don't need.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think they're good there.
Could you technically take what's the feat that lets you cast the spells as a attack of opportunity? Is it Warcaster?
It's a mage, yeah, Warcaster. Yeah.
Could you then could could it be reasonable then for a paladin to take Warcaster to Divine Smite as a bonus action, as a reaction?
I don't know if it's in the rules. I think I would allow that because it does seem like a very specific choice on the player to take a feat to be able to do something interesting. I would not punish them for coming up with that cool workaround. So yeah, I think that'd be cool.
Yeah, I like the idea of expanding the use of feats, right? I feel like sometimes feats become almost automatic with certain classes.
Yeah.
And so coming up with, if a player comes up with a reason why a feat would work outside of sort of the like traditional, this class needs to go polearm master or else it just kind of isn't as good.
Yeah.
You know.
I think that's totally cool. If they come up with the idea and it's like, I would like to get this feat and I would like it to do this one tiny additional thing. And if it's like not insane, if they're like, I would like it to allow me to avoid death forever and I have infinite spell slots, I'm like, no. But if it's like, I want to be able to smite as an opportunity attack, I'm like, that sounds cool. Yeah, I'll allow that. You're taking a feat to do it. You're not just asking for it. That's fine.
That's so
I think that's fun. Yeah.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about the Divine Smite on an attack of opportunity. That's a good pull.
Because you need to have your bonus action available to be able to smite. You don't have it available when it's not your turn. So it's one of those things that in reading it will get missed by most people, but in the way they've designed it is kind of not. It can't be intentional that they designed it that way. You know what I mean? It's one of those things that it's just going to get mixed up. Like, everyone thinks potions are bonus actions. This book says that they are, but they weren't always bonus actions. People just kind of played it that way. That's the same way I feel like people are just going to ignore the fact that you don't have a bonus action on your attack of opportunity.
honest question, do you think people will switch to the 2024 rules?
Do you want to be sponsored at any point from Wizards of the Coast? No.
Not in a mean way. I'm not saying like I'm not trying to like come for them. I mean more like do you think people will? Not do you think they're good or not? Because I think that there's good and there's things I love about them and things I don't, right? Like it's a mixed bag to me. The same way that 2014 is, the same way that 4th edition wasn't. 4th edition I'm not a huge fan of, but 3.5 and 3, which were the ones I started on, they were also mixed bags. There were things I didn't like about them, things I loved, right? Like, but I'm more asking like, given the tenor of talking about it from Gen Con to now, because I think people will in like a year when all 3 books are out, but I don't think they will right now.
Yes, I think you are correct. There's 2 issues with it. One, right now, using the player options from the 2024 handbook, the players are way too strong to be put up against things from the regular Monster Manual or any adventure guide that's out. They will just walk past any challenge you put before them from that book, unless you adjust it to, meet what they're capable of doing now. So when the new Monster Manual comes out, the new DM's guide comes out, they have better options to deal with those better classes. I think people will probably migrate to it, but I think the bigger problem is there are so many people who are just kind of fed up with Wizards of the Coast at this point. That is probably the bigger hindrance, is that they just see them as this money hungry monster that just is putting out a new system because it's that time of year for the money to roll in, which I don't think is the case. I think it's Hasbro. It's a bigger problem than just Wizards of the Coast. But I think that's what a lot of people's view of that company is, and it will prevent them from, looking into this game more.
I think, honestly, I think 2 of the big problems that I foresee for them is that there isn't a major actual play that is going to play it in the next year, right? Because I don't think Critical Role is going to switch. None of the classes on that show are compatible.
They'll play Daggerheart the next campaign.
Yeah, for sure, right? And so they're going to be doing Daggerheart. Dimension 20 occasionally plays D&D now, but it's not even like Dimension 20 sells D&D as its thing. I mean, they're doing Kids on Brooms right now with Magic Misfits, right? And I think the other side of it is going to be that I think that the ability to, this is such a dumb thing, but I think it's a big thing. The ability to Google things is so much a part of how 5e works. And every time you Google something from now on with D&D, because they didn't name it something else, you're not going to know if the rule is compatible with what you're playing. Because the Reddit threads that come up aren't labeled 5e 2014. The Reddit threads don't have any information in them other than, I guess, the date that they came out. But most of the information I have is from Reddit, right?
Yeah, no, that's true. The SEO on D&D and D&D 2 or whatever they're trying to call this thing is terrible. They're not going to be able to find information on like the newer version of the game because there's so much old information out there. Yeah. The other thing I will mention in that it's kind of like the Paladin Divine Smite thing. I don't think people have noticed this yet. Everyone who played the 2014 version of the game, they most likely got a PDF of the player's handbook for 5e. There is not going to be a PDF of the newer book. That is all through D&D Beyond now. There is no like downloadable file that has all the book's pages on it anymore. That's not a thing unless somebody scans them all in from the physical book.
Wait, you can't just read the book as a PDF on D&D Beyond?
No.
That's wild.
Because they don't want you to have access to a PDF version of it. It can't be shared for free if it's on their website in like sections. So,
yeah, that's crazy. That is crazy.
That's the bigger part that I don't think a lot of people have tapped into yet is you will not have a free version of this book, shared around on the internet. There might be websites that have it piecemealed together, but unless you want the whole book in one place, you're not going to have that option.
Okay. So, I did not realize that.
Yeah, I'll hire you to sue them so that we can all get in there and.
I'm so sorry. I don't actually do lawsuits, especially against giant American corporations from Canada. I feel like I feel like
Don't you
Hasbro
have,
could
like,
buy Canada, so
did you guys have like diplomatic immunity or something up there?
I think that you have to be a
Oh no, you have
diplomat.
universal health care. That's what
Yeah,
it is.
yeah.
Yeah, fuck. God, you guys are so good up there.
Those are very different things.
Just a little bit different.
We actually, all Canadians have diplomatic immunity. It's a hellhole because we all just commit crimes because no one can do anything to us.
That's crazy. You lawless ass country. Come down here where we have all the guns.
Hey, you know what? No, I'm good.
Well, yeah, it's fair.
Yeah. I mean, you guys are going to do better than we will in a zombie apocalypse, but we have the cold. So I feel like as long as we can get to winter, we'll be fine.
We're gonna have a bunch of rednecks killing people for no reason in the zombie apocalypse. We're all gonna get woke mobbed, dude.
That's the thing that I don't think zombie media gets into enough, is that the people that would survive would all be the craziest Second Amendment rednecks. And yeah. I want that zombie movie. I want just a group of MAGA Trump people just complaining about how it was all Clinton's fault in the zombie apocalypse. It's been 12 years.
It would be a farm of MAGA supporters that don't believe in the zombie virus. It's definitely a hoax.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's wild. All right. Well, what a weird place to end this podcast. But we talked about all sorts of weird things, so I guess it kind of fit.
It was great. It was a great little.
Mr. Shickadance, tell me and everyone at home, where can they find you other than Heroes Without Borders, 4-week charity event coming later this year that you'll be starring in?
Hell yeah. I can't wait. That's going to be fun. You can find me on my TikTok channel, Mr. Shickadance. It is the only one that is just my name, one word, Mr. Shickadance, exactly how it sounds. All the other ones have weird underscores or different ways of spelling it because some guy got it in 2006 and I can't get him to give it to me. So go to the TikTok page. There'll be a link tree with all my links, including Chaos Theory, which if you search Chaos Theory D&D on YouTube or pretty much anywhere, you should be able to find it. That's the best way to find the show. Hopefully you enjoy it and you subscribe so you can get the immediate access to it when it comes out.
And that link tree is going to be linked in the doobly-doo on YouTube or in the description on your podcast feed. So if you want to click on it, you will have access to it through this show. I am nerdy, as always. I am going to be DMing this guy in Heroes Without Borders. We're going to have to talk character soon because that's in less than 2 months.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I know.
We're playing 2024 rules?
No, because then there's 6 things that you guys can be. You know what I mean?
Also, yeah, we'd all be the same class, and no one would know what to play or what to do.
It's also based on a module that came out 3 months before the new player's handbook. So
that seems like kind of bad timing on somebody's part. I'm not going to say.
I don't know. Happy 50th anniversary, D&D. You can also catch the roleplay relay. We're going to be live on the Our Brilliant Ruin channel on October 19th. We are making an actual play for them for their 1-year anniversary. So make sure to check that out. That's going to be starring myself, Claris Fariha, Justan Myers, aka Cappy Archer for those of you who have been around since the Twitch days. And I'm forgetting about... Oh, and Robin, Captain Crail, on all things. It's going to be the 5 of us doing some Ruin over there on the 19th. And then Heroes Without Borders November 20th to December 13th. Save up and donate to Doctors Without Borders. It's going to be a really cool charity drive. Miss Shickadance, big fan of you. I'm so glad we met at Gen Con. You seem like a wonderful person. I can't wait to roll some dice with you. Thanks so much.
Hell yeah. Awesome. See you guys.
Do something nerdy tonight.